Hello, and welcome back to the Let Me Add to That podcast. My name is Elizabeth Graswich, Executive Director of Public Affairs and Communications at the Los Angeles County Office of Education. We are the largest regional education agency in the United States. We serve 80 school districts and nearly 2 million children. We are excited to use this platform to take a deep dive into the conversations surrounding our students and schools in LA County. Welcome back to the Let Me Add to That podcast. Today we have not one, not two, but three very special guests, starting with our LA County Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Debra Duardo. Hi, Dr. Duardo. Thanks for being here today.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And joining Dr. Duardo are two of our student advisors. First, we have LAUSD Middle College High School Junior, Adhirat Ajani. Hi, Adhirat.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And La Cañada Unified Senior, Jada Yang from La Cañada High School. Hi, Jada. Welcome.
Hi, delighted to be here. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Love that you both are joining us this morning. So most of our LA County school districts start the 23-24 school year this month. And so we wanted to use this opportunity to talk to our students on what students really want from us, from their schools, their teachers, and education as a whole. But first, Dr. Duardo, we want to ask you a little bit about your student advisory and what the roles entail.
Thanks, Liz. So we started our Student Advisory Council a couple of years ago, really with the intention of hearing directly from our students. I've always been an avid believer in when you're trying to solve problems or you're trying to make a system better, to speak directly to the people that are most impacted by that system, and those are our students. So it's been a wonderful opportunity. We have students from across all of LA County that come together and share what's working in their schools, what isn't working, issues that are important to them, changes that they'd like to see happen, and really an opportunity for them to serve as leaders and take action on some of those issues that are really important to them.
And, you know, you get the opportunity to talk to them all the time. So we thought this podcast would give us an opportunity to share some of these wonderful voices with our audience. And so, again, thank you both for being here today. So I'm going to turn to our students and ask you, what challenges do you face as a student today, and how do you believe they can be addressed? Jada, you want to start?
Yes, of course. So again, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to contribute to this wonderful podcast. You know, as a current senior in high school, I've observed a lot of the time that as high school students, we have to make so many difficult decisions that really guide us for the rest of our lives. Whether that be through joining college, learning vocational skills, learning a trade, joining the military, or learning from all these other fields. And so one of the greatest things about high school is that we have so many opportunities, but also so many resources. And at my high school, La Cañada High School, we do a really great job at providing resources and support systems for our students to guide ourselves into our future. However, in a really large public school, what needs improvement is that we have a lot of students to one counselor. So it's like one counselor to 200 to 300 students. And so I think what we can improve on, although there are really great resources, is providing more individualized support and and guides to really help students plan out their futures.
Thanks, Jada. And Adhirat, what do you think?
For me, I think what would be something that I struggle with nowadays is like a sense of comfort in my school, only because I do come from a low-income community, and schools around there, I don't feel like we get the same resources or the same opportunities that other schools do. And when I come to school, and I talk to my counselor, since I have a very small school, we only have 400 students and we have 2 counselors. And when I talk to them about stuff that, I want to try this, they're like, no, you shouldn't really apply for that because you're most likely not going to get paid because of your where you're from, and there's no point in even trying. So I think that is what at that community, that South LA, I think the counselors and principals and administrators need to be more open and hoping and more encouraging to students of lower backgrounds to make them know that we can have the same chances that other students do around LA.
Wow, Adhirat, I really appreciate you bringing that up because equity is such an important part of the work that we do. And although Jada, you talked about having all of these wonderful resources at La Cañada, to hear Adhirat talk about not feeling like her community has the same level of resources. And the most important role that I see anybody who works with children, the most critical role that they play is instilling hope and giving that encouragement and really believing that every student has the opportunity to meet their full potential. So it saddens me when I hear any adult discouraging a student because of the area that they live in, because we know that that does not determine your ability to succeed. And my question, I guess, to Jada is, how do you feel when you hear Adhirat talk about this experience? How does that resonate with you?
Well, coming from, I guess, my own background, I feel obviously fortunate to have all of these resources. And, it's difficult to hear that my peers are going through such a tough time. And I'm super sorry to hear that. And hopefully in the future, as we get to grow our resources, we can improve on providing similar resources to other students. And really, it just takes awareness, compassion, and our ability to adapt to certain situations.
I'm wondering what you two think can be done to ensure equity, and what can we do as part of our Student Advisory Council to make sure that this is an issue that we're looking at and that we're holding our schools and our districts accountable. So I'm curious, either one of you, if you have any thoughts about what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that our schools and resources are equitable.
I think this is also a really great example of you guys asking us how we are, because adults don't really see the same things that students do when we go to school. Like, they don't know what we see every day and how we feel. So I think just like how this is going on, schools do need to learn students' input more. Like, they don't really understand how much a lot of students really want to change what's going on around them. So I think if they really hear us and not think of it as a generational thing, because they like to talk about how this generation isn't satisfied and stuff like that. But there's a reason why we're not satisfied, and I think that that's what needs to be talked about more. What we feel, because what we feel really impacts the way our future, what we do in school and how our future, really entails.
Thank you. What about you, Jada?
There's a lot of different and individual experiences. Not everyone's experience is going to be the same. I think one of the greatest things about, when we, fund different schools, knowing exactly the demographic and being aware of it, that can be something that we can work on. But honestly, it just depends on where we are and depends on how many opportunities we have to improve. So it's not, I don't really know if there's an exact solution, but I know that there's a pressing problem.
Yeah. So just so that you're both aware, the way schools are funded actually is through this local control funding formula, and districts that have more poor children, English language learners, and children that are part of the foster care system do get additional funding, because there is that understanding that there's a higher need, that they're not starting from the same playing field when they have these other challenges that they face. But I really appreciate both of you engaging in this conversation. I'm wondering if one of you or both of you would like to share an experience where you feel a teacher went above and beyond to support you, where that you really felt like they cared about your learning.
I think I can go first. I'm fortunate enough to live in an environment where I believe all kind of the teachers create a really great environment. I've been not only fortunate, but I'm glad to have that support network available to me. I guess a few examples that come to mind. The first is through my AP Euro teacher that I had my sophomore year. We did an activity where we had to stand in up and down in chairs a lot. And as someone who's physically disabled, that's not really something I can easily do. So he pulled me aside and he was like, hey, is this something that you're comfortable with? And then we really talked it through, and making that learning environment accessible is something that really meant a lot to me at the time. And then I guess another example could be my AP bio teacher. When we all had these AP exams and we were taken out of class, she really made it adaptable and flexible, where she held Zoom office hours and like had a full-length proctor's exam on the weekends to really be adaptable to our schedules. And I guess what kind of Adhirat was saying, like hearing the student concerns and making sure their input is heard, especially with our busy, demanding schedules, is something that really means a lot to us. So.
Thank you. What about you, Adhirat?
For me, it takes me like a few years ago in 5th grade. I still talk about this teacher. Well, this teacher, his name was Mr. Gomez, and in our class, it was like he made learning, not just for me, but for everyone in the class. He made it really fun. Like when we did math in class, we would have like whiteboards, and it would be like a competition, and he would have everyone like go up, and even students in like the past years who would not be more interactive in school, in that classroom, it was more interactive, and people would actually like coming to school. And our class had the highest attendance rate, only because he really made like learning something really fun to do. And I've always thought about that through middle school, because I feel like there's some classes, even though it is hard for teachers to like really make a bond with students, because sometimes students are really closed off, but he really made games. We had like these tickets that we would have where we would like want a lot so we can get candy. Stuff like that really impacted me a lot, because before I wasn't really a fan of school because of like bullying and stuff like that. But when I got to his class, I would always be excited to come to school. I would always like to learn, and that was really something that I still think about to this day. So usually when a teacher does something similar, tries to make learning fun, but also like interesting, I really appreciate that. And that's what I think he really went above and beyond to support us.
Thank you. So I heard some conversation about accommodations and making you feel like you belonged and people cared enough to accommodate your physical needs. And Adhirat, what I'm hearing from you is just making learning fun, like finding a way to engage with your students and really enjoying that. But something that really is sticking with me right now, you kind of talked slightly about bullying. And bullying is an issue that has been going on in schools for a very long time. And I'd love to hear if you're comfortable sharing how you felt bullied, and if not, just bullying in general. What do you think the adults can do to make sure that our schools are free from any form of bullying?
Since I wasn't born in the United States, I was born in Nigeria. So I came here when I was in 3rd grade. So I had a really heavy accent, and that's what, like, around that age, a lot of kids would bully me for that. And like how I had like a disease or just like stuff like that, because I was coming from Africa. So I did end up changing schools because of that. So when I got to this school in 4th grade, I was still getting bullied because of my skin tone. But when I got to 5th grade, even though I was the only Black girl in that classroom, I still felt a more sense of comfort because of my teacher. And my teacher wasn't an African, he was also Hispanic, but at that time, it really didn't cross my mind that I was the only Black girl in, because I wasn't really thinking like that. But because of the teacher, he never made me feel out of place. He never really made me feel like, oh, you're the only Black girl in here. Like, I'm gonna sugarcoat you. I'm gonna treat you differently. I didn't feel like that at all. I felt really comfortable in that classroom. I made really great friends in that classroom. And I think the reason why is because he shared some experiences about bullying too. So it was like a no bullying zone. So that's what I think, because some of the kids in that classroom, like there were kids in that classroom that had a lot of like behavior issues, but because of he was very understanding about stuff that they came from and stuff that they went through, that's what really stopped them from bullying, like really understanding like this isn't right. And I think that also is what schools need to, especially in the younger age, when kids tell them that they're being bullied, I think it's brushed off, because my brother, he's also going through bullying right now. And it's kind of hard for me to like, to see, because I used to get bullied and I know how that feels. And I think that in his school, they're not really taking it as seriously as they should. Like, they're telling the guy to stop bullying him, but they're like brushing it off immediately, and that's not going to stop the bully. It's just going to encourage them to do more. So I think it's really just a sense of comfort. Like, now that I know that I'm not getting bullied anymore, but you never really forget the feeling, and you really also make sure that you're not making anyone feel that way too. So I think that's it.
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry that anybody would treat you poorly because of your accent or because of the color of your skin, and you absolutely didn't deserve that. And it's exciting to see a teacher that knew how to address this issue, that stepped in, that did the right thing, and really made it clear that there would be no tolerance for bullying in his classroom, which tells us there's a lot that the adults can do. And it also just speaks to, I could hear it in your voice, and I have the pleasure of looking at you, and I can see the pain that it caused, and so people really need to take this seriously. And I'd like to ask Jada if there's anything you'd like to add to the bullying discussion.
Yeah, of course. I'm, again, so sorry to hear that. It's really disheartening. I've actually had an experience that was a little separate. As someone who's able to walk without a mobility device, but still need accommodations to move around my campus, I've unfortunately been the brunt of a lot of assumptions. More specifically, people used to think I faked my disability or did something to get accommodations. And so again, it's kind of like when people sometimes invalidate other people's experiences, I think it all comes down to how we learn and our environment in which we're willing to learn about others. I've had a lot of kind of similar things that you were talking about, but not in terms of like other parts of my identity. And so I've learned to kind of adapt, and just, it's more of an awareness thing rather than a mean thing. And sometimes for me personally, it can be difficult to deal with. But I think that if we teach students how to create a compassionable and a empathetic workplace, then some of this can be mitigated.
What are the other key issues that are really important to you that make you feel that if these things are in place, we can have the best chance at making sure all of our students have a high quality, positive experience at school?
Well, I guess on the news, like seeing all these mass shootings happen so frequently, it's really hard to feel 100% safe of where you are at all times. For me personally, like, at our high school, there's like gates and security guards in the front of our campus, but in the back, there's not really anything protecting us. And in addition to this, like, I think teachers get training on like how to deal with these types of situations, but some of that training is not directed towards students like us. And so kind of when it comes down to school safety, that's one of the pressing issues for me personally, because it's a really big source of stress when we have to deal with different types of education and focus on how we can learn, but at the same time focus on how we can thrive in our environment or even survive. Obviously, I don't really know an exact solution, but and I would love to hear what you guys think, but I think there's a pressing issue and a really big problem that we probably need to address as a community.
For me, it's kind of different. My school is on a college campus, so we, like, right in front of my school, there's a sheriff office. So there is that sense of safety. But for something I think that needs to also be changed is administrators being more open-minded when it comes in terms of sports and clubs, because I was never a sports person, like, all my life until I got to 9th grade. I started playing softball. And after I played softball, I did feel better, not in a sense of like physical, like, well, but like I felt better in my head because I had something fun I was doing. And usually before it was more like, oh, you need to go to school, stop focusing on sports. Some people do say that, like, you need to do your homework. But like every single day after school when I went to play softball, it was a really like sense of comfort. Like I wasn't thinking about school. And sometimes most people don't have the opportunity to go home and feel like a sense of like peace, because there are homes that are very loud and very judgmental, and usually sports like soccer, after school sports really changed the way I was feeling. Like when I did get home, I did my homework, but going right to sports, having friends to like play with and things like that, that's really what encouraged me to also join other activities, because I really saw it is really like nice to have something other than school to do, like having hobbies. And I wasn't really exposed to that beforehand. So I think really just encouraging hobbies. Hobbies are really important because it really makes you think of yourself outside of school and outside of your education and stuff like that.
Thanks, Adhirat. I mean, I heard two things. One, this fear of mass shootings, and basically an overall sense of safety at school, and that we all know that for anyone, especially children, to learn, you have to feel safe. You have to be able to focus on your school. And what comes to mind for me is just your overall sense of well-being, right? Safety, feeling secure in your space, feeling a sense of belonging at your school, which leads to healthy mental health or well-being. And so I want to go back to what you said about the sports, but before we go to that, I'd like to take a moment to speak a little bit to that importance of overall well-being and good mental health. And I know, Adhirat, you talked about, before we got started on the podcast, something that you're doing right now around mental health. So if you could share a little bit about your thoughts of why is mental health important when it comes to school and learning, and maybe you can share what you're doing.
For the program, so the program is a 5-week program. I go every day. It's the last day is June 22nd, and we have a capstone project that everyone like in a group is completing, and it's on a mental health disorder. And it's like we collect data, we make a model on different, like in mine, we're talking about substance abuse disorder, because that's what my group, especially being from South LA, that's the really big problem in our schools, like drugs and vaping and cigarettes, alcohol. So I think that program really helped me realize that. And there were also helped me realize all the other mental health professionals out there that really help people, such as like being a neurologist or like a neurologist psychologist, stuff like that. And we also learned about the brain and how different parts of the brain affect people's mental health issues, and how drugs, like when you take a drug, like the different parts of the brain that it goes into and how it affects your thinking. So I think that is also, that program really helped me understand why some people may be acting like may be less motivated at school. Sometimes it's because of home environment. If you're not around a very encouraging environment, then you don't really have motivation. Like not everyone has the same support that other families do when in terms when it comes. Some people just come to school just because their parents, they like have to in a way. They don't really come for a purpose. And I think especially with the sports, I think that also helped my mental health, because my mental health wasn't good before due to also bullying. I didn't really feel motivated until I got like to 5th grade. After like my teacher, he really exposed us to different things we could do with our education. Like there's so much that you could do, so much learning gets you. And it's not just about like learning, or you're learning for a career, but like you're also learning to be smart around you, like to be aware of other people's feelings and why they are the way they are. So I think that program really helped me a lot. And they also have more like meditating and like these mindfulness, like in the beginning and end of the day, where we just like sit in silence and gather our thoughts and what's wrong with this, and we write it out. And just those little things like really changed me as a person, especially coming from an ethnic household where that isn't really talked about back in Nigeria. Like when I came here, I wasn't aware of any of that. So I think also putting those resources to people who are not accustomed to that understanding environment.
Can you tell us the name of the mental health program, and is it being offered at your school or?
No, it's a program I had to sign. It's by Child Minds Institute. This is the first time. This is the first opening of the first cohort, and it's at different colleges. There's 4 colleges, and students pick the one that's closest to them, where we just come and learn about what's going on in our society and all the stigmas around mental health.
Awesome. Well, a couple of things that I heard you talk about is one, just the importance of exposure like learning about mental health and learning that there are these fields and there are these opportunities and the relevancy of your education. So like you're not just coming to school to go to school, you're coming to school so that you can learn and be exposed and realize that it can have an impact on your future. Like when I went to school, I was one of those kids you were talking about whose parents sent us, and I thought we went to school because our parents had to go to work. I didn't understand the relevance of it. But how about you, Jada? Anything you'd like to add around mental health and why that's important?
Yeah, of course. I'm actually at my school. I'm a part of my school's peer support program, which allows us a select group of students to train to be, I guess, some like kind of counselors to really teach and provide a like helping hand and support network for students. We do like counseling sessions almost. So we're trained to listen to students with an empathetic ear and really be a peer-to-peer face. I guess some of the stuff I've learned from there is that like not only is being empathetic important, but being compassionate and understanding of others' experiences. Having access to mental health resources is so important, especially with tough decisions that we have to make in our high school career and anything going on outside of that. I definitely learned through my experiences and my time talking with other students that there is so much going on behind the scenes. And being aware of those situations and seeing how people don't really address that all the time, I guess is really saddening to hear. And one of I guess my messages would be that there's more going on behind the surface than people know. And so just taking every situation with compassion and empathy and also a listening ear is super important.
So, Adhirat, I want to get back to sports because you talked about how meaningful it's been to you and how it's changed your experience at school. And, you know, whether it's sports or music or some type of extracurricular program that will engage students and make them more excited about coming to school. I want to address that a little bit because we have a really serious problem right now with chronic absenteeism. You know, since the pandemic, we've had in some schools where like 50% of the students are not coming to school regularly. And I'm wondering, you know, since you brought up sports, I'm wondering what else could we do to engage students and have them feel excited and wanting to come to school? Any ideas?
I think it all comes back to motivation because it's not like I am like so in love with school and like it's really hard getting up sometimes. But I go to school not just because my parents want me to be very successful, because I know what it can do for me. And that's what a lot of students don't recognize. Like, especially from my environment where a lot of us could be first generation, they don't understand how much of an impact they're making by just going to school and wanting to learn and going to these top-tier universities and really trying hard, because these stereotypes that's really upon Black and brown people, it can be fixed, but it's like we usually like, oh my God, okay, there's a stereotype against us. So we're just going to follow that stereotype. We're not even going to try to change it because that's just who we are and where we come from. So with the absenteeism, my school, since we're just a small school, the only reason why we would have a low absence rate is only from students who really don't understand the purpose of school and who don't find it fun, or they have issues with someone at school, like bullying, especially bullying. Because when I was getting bullied, I never wanted to come to school. Like, I would try to make every single thing to not come to school because I didn't have time. I didn't want to deal with that anymore. So when you feel that sense of comfort, we have friends. Like, I miss my friends right now, and I'm really excited to go back to school just to see them. But if I didn't have these friends and I was getting bullied, I would not want to go back to school. So it's really, like you said, a sense of well-being and comfort in school and motivation. Motivation is really the biggest pusher to come to school. You really have to come to school for a purpose. You just can't come to school because you have to come to school or your parents are making you come to school. You come to school because you know what you want to do with your life. You have a goal that you want to pursue, and that's really what motivates me.
Wow. How about you, Jada? Would you like to add to that?
Yeah. My experiences are a little on the opposite side of the spectrum. I come from a hyper-competitive school, so every single student is trying to literally just go to the best school possible. I think that that competitive drive is something that can deter, but also help motivate students. It's a little scary, not gonna lie, but I think like in terms of sustaining a learning environment, one of the greatest things that I realized is having curriculum that you can relate to is really empowering to see. Growing up, I didn't have access to a disabled community, nor did I have access to disability education. And having time to really dive deep into the topics that you want to do and discovering how multifaceted your passions can be, even in like an academically focused environment, is something that has been extremely powerful for me. And I actually want to become a disability rights lawyer because I found meaning in relating to education and embracing my own identity because of it. And so one of the greatest things about, I guess, liberal arts education or any type of schooling is that you get to learn what you want to learn. And providing that opportunity is, I'm a really big proponent of. So yeah, I think that can kind of go along with the motivation aspect of how to deal with absenteeism.
So I have another question, since it's not apparent to our listeners, but, I'm sitting here with two beautiful young women who are both women of color. Adhirat is Black, Jada is Asian, and you spoke to how important it is to see yourself in the curriculum and in the instructional program. And I'd like to hear from each of you to see, did you see in your experience literature or scientists or leaders that look like you or that came from the communities where you come from?
My school does a great job for pushing diversity. And I've had the opportunity to engage in events like our multicultural fair. They hold talks with people of color, and we have an opportunity and a willingness to learn from so many different people. However, what I think can be improved upon is our definition of diversity. You see, kind of like at school, we primarily focus on ethnic, cultural backgrounds or literally just the color of our skin. And unfortunately, sometimes I think that some groups can get pushed aside. For personal experience, I have not seen as much disability-focused literature. And I had to go find it out for myself. And I was talking to one of our partners through, one of the activities I do, and they are a proponent for disability education. And when they talk, this person's in Chicago, and when they talked to their local school board about adding this type of curriculum, they said no, because they wanted to focus on ethnic and cultural backgrounds. The one thing that I believe is that if we're trying to prepare our students for the real world, we have to interact with all different types of people, no matter if they're all backgrounds or like if we're trying to push for intersectionality or have people be empathetic towards other people, we have to prepare them for who they're actually going to work with in the future. I think the schools kind of understand that like diversity is extremely important, but when we limit it to or don't give students the opportunity to learn about all different types of people, that can be kind of the drawback, because we kind of want to prepare our students to work in an empathetic place.
Thanks, Jada. I'm going to ask Adhirat, but we're going to come back to that really interesting point that you just made about not having the opportunity to learn or to have all people represented. But what do you think?
I definitely agree with Jada when she talked about when people think of diversity, they just think of skin tone. And that's like something that I've been thinking about lately. Like, it's really not because of skin tone, because at my school, we only have like, I could say 10 teachers because it's a small school, but every teacher is different. And not just in terms of skin tone, because we have German teachers, we have Russian teachers, we have an Ethiopian teacher, we have a white teacher, we have a black teacher. And it's not because of their race or skin tone that makes the school so diverse. It's because of the knowledge they have about different, because I could feel really, really comfortable around someone a different race from me, but if they understand, like, it doesn't have to be someone black to make me really comfortable, because I can be with someone that's African American and still not feel heard and still not feel understood. But I can, like, I have a counselor, her name is Ms. Yang, and she's Asian, but I feel more comfortable with her than I would with another black administrator, only because she has a very wide range of knowledge about different cultures, not just her culture. Like, she can understand a Hispanic student when they're talking about their experiences. She can understand my experiences. So it's really not about skin tone. It's more about inclusivity, just making sure that you understand that everyone is different, even the people with the same race. Because my race and someone else, like someone the same race as me, we can have very different experiences in terms of home and where we come from. So it's really just about different ideas, not just skin tone, because diversity, is very, very important, because I do feel more comfortable when I see people that look like me. But it's really important, not just that look like me, but really understand. That's not just, it's just really understanding.
If I can add on to that, I 100% agree. I think that we see in our current system people being like represented from all these different backgrounds, but when we primarily focus on their accomplishments and like what they do, it kind of pushes aside some of the issues that they face currently. I'm like in literature, for example, we get to dive into like having awareness of their struggles and their experiences and making sure that we cover all, if not most, of those types of experiences, even if they're covering multiple at the same time, can be extremely transformative for the student experience.
Because you brought up this issue about representation and making sure that we have an opportunity to see everyone in our learning, I'm wondering a couple of things. One is California is the first state to implement ethnic studies as a requirement. In a few years, every single high school student, in order to graduate, is going to have to take ethnic studies. Yet there are some people that are really pushing back, and they don't want ethnic studies taught. There are people that are not wanting any LGBTQ plus issues addressed in their schools. You've probably seen it, people protesting at board meetings, people wanting to ban books. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
On the people protesting against it. I mean, I'm around that, I guess. I feel like since I come from a African household, I'm that like part of like my community, like my family, my extended family, they're not really open to LGBTQ plus, especially when we came to the United States. It's not really common for people to be LGBTQ in Nigeria, because it's so like it's not illegal, but it's very looked down upon. But I can see the big difference between my parents when we came to the United States to now. My parents are way more understanding, only because of my siblings and me and my siblings, because we really do teach them that. We really do teach them that it's people have the right to be who they want to be. Like you're obviously from a country where you have no choice to be like that, but you really got to understand that what other people are doing does not affect you in any type of way. And now my parents, they're more open to that. My dad, like when he's at work, he doesn't really make those rude comments anymore. And it's really just about understanding. It's just understanding, because I understand like some people, how they may feel when people, just because of their sexuality or their gender, how they may feel like, oh my gosh, this is how they don't really want me here. They don't want their kids to know about me. And it's really just putting yourself in that perspective. Like, yes, you're not LGBTQ, but think of someone who is LGBTQ and how they feel, because you don't want your kids to know about them. You're thinking of them as a disease. And I think it's just really just about understanding other people's feelings. And that's what a lot of people need to really dip deep into, is really just a sense of self-awareness.
You know, I definitely have thoughts on it. But, you know, people's reasoning behind things, we can't really understand what they're thinking. And, you know, I probably don't know both sides of the story, and their experiences might be valid or might not be. But I guess in terms of how I think of things, when we implement things that really make students see how we are in the real world, how we interact with others, I think personally my school is doing a great job. We already have an ethnic studies course that's offered after school. But what it comes down to is awareness, how we are aware and how we are exposed to different types of viewpoints. And not only that, but how we can interact with people that have different viewpoints than us. I think this might be a great topic for, like, you know, trying to understand other people's experiences and what they might be motivated by. But unless we have, like, awareness of these different types of things, we can never be exposed, and we can never, I guess, be destigmatized towards a lot of different other views.
If I could add to that, and I also think that most people, they're against these stuff, not because they themselves are against it, but because of their culture and their religion. Because my mom, yeah, she's Christian, and it's seen as a sin to be LGBTQ and stuff. And that's really the only reason why she's like that. But when I tell her about the experiences, when she watches the news and she sees how LGBTQ people are treated, she really is like, why are they acting like this? It's really just them being who they want to be. And that's really what changed her, because she's having her own sense of thinking that it's really just because your culture says it's wrong and your religion says it's wrong, you're just going to follow that. You're just going to go with that. But you're not really going to think, is this fair? Is it fair for people to, like, beat people up because of their sexual orientation or their sexuality? And that's really what helped her really understand. It's really just about being exposed to other people's experiences, because you don't really know how people are feeling until you see it.
If you guys can let me add to that, you know, I think one of the analogies I've grown up with is kind of like, we're almost trained like racehorses, you know, like they are trained with blinders on, so they only see what's right in front of them, and they kind of go towards that without any hesitation. But if we take those blinders away and kind of just, like, see how much of the world that we kind of miss, you know, being exposed to those different types of representations and things are super important. And I think my school does a really great job of helping us expose us to all these different types of viewpoints. But really what's kind of missing, or sometimes can be improved upon, is how we, I guess, deliver those types of exposures. So whether that be through classes or clubs, it can honestly take so many different types of paths, and that's super important to me.
So my last question is really just to hear more about your dreams and hopes for this new school year. And what are you excited about? And, you know, what are your thoughts about entering, for you, Jada, it's your final school year.
Yeah.
And Adhirat, what are your hopes for this new school year?
Well, I mean, I'm going through the college process right now, so I hope to get accepted somewhere. And, you know, I think one of the greatest things about high school is that there's so many different opportunities, so many pathways where you can be supported by. You know, I run a nonprofit called Mission for Mobility that I've kind of talked about off camera, where it's a youth-led initiative that empowers the voices of disabled students through sharing their stories. And I really want to become, because of that, a disability rights lawyer. And because I've learned kind of like how to embrace my identity and the meaning behind that, I guess my one goal for this school year is to not only support others that might be going through things, but also, like, learn more about how they interact with each other and how I can help them or I can learn from them. I think the greatest thing about my high school experience is that I've had such a honor to be part of such diverse communities, and especially the Student Advisory Board. and being more exposed to it and like pushing for more awareness campaigns and advocacy is something I'm looking forward to. And also graduating, that might be fun. Just knowing that there's an unknown aspect to a lot of my future plans is exciting. It's a really great opportunity, and I'm honored to be a part of this organization and my school district to support me through that.
Wonderful.
For me, I'm going to my junior year. It's kind of scary because everyone tells me it's the hardest year. But something that I hope for, that I was really happy about my 10th grade year, something that I hope for is for more students in my grade to be more engaged, like to want more for themselves. Because in 9th grade, I had a lot of friends who weren't really like working towards anything. They were just trying to pass their classes. They weren't willing to graduate. They weren't having any colleges. In 10th grade, there were more that really like had some goals. They were like actually trying in their classes. And there were some boys that before they would go to Saturday school and summer school to get their F's up, and now they're on honor roll. And it's just seeing stuff like that, like seeing how my school, what they have done, like by bringing guest speakers and taking us on college field trips, it really opened their eyes to see what's really out there, like after high school. Like you can really do all of this stuff after high school, and that's what I'm really hoping for my 11th grade year. And to also, I'm really trying hard. I'm part of this club. It's called Advocate for Healthy Choices, because we're trying to make the substance abuse like really low, especially in the minority, because it's easier to get in the minorities. I have kids in my that I know, not in my school, but that are selling weed at their age, and they're not really thinking of the consequences of that. So that's really what I hope to fix, the substance abuse around that area, because it's really bad, and it really affects the way people see life. It really affects the way people like see that there's so much more out there, like a lot more out there than they really know, than what they're exposed to. Like everyone is stuck in this bubble of like Los Angeles, South LA, and they think that's the farthest they can go to. And it's not bad that you want to be around your community, but that's really they think that's it. Like there's way more out there. You can go out of state. They don't know that. It's just really a sense of feeling comfortable and wanting better for yourself. It's just motivation.
Mm-hmm. And if I can add to that, what are you guys excited about the most, Dr. Duardo? And what are you guys looking forward to?
Well, hearing from the two of you, I'm super excited to continue with our Student Advisory Council. And I'm already thinking of some of the areas that our students have identified. So mental health and well-being, substance abuse, equity, addressing the housing crisis that we're facing, that many of our students are impacted by. So I see students like you, and I'm just so excited and feel good about the future, because I know that our youth have the ability to problem solve and address these critical issues, and two young women like you who are not only smart but compassionate and really care about other people and making the educational system and your whole experience a better place really gives me a lot of hope. So that's what I'm excited about, but I'll pass it on to Liz.
Thanks, Dr. Duardo. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Adhirat and Jada just for your words of wisdom. I mean, just a mind-blowing conversation. And, you know, for me, the really greatest takeaway is just the importance of student voice and, you know, wanting to really continue to advocate that everyone just takes the time to stop and listen and engage, because we can learn so much from you. So thank you so much, all three of you, Dr. Duardo, for leading the conversation and lending us the opportunity to have a conversation with your student advisors. What a gift for us. So,
thank you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to our next episode of Let Me Add to That.
Yay. Thank you.
Please follow the Los Angeles County Office of Education on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Los Angeles COE. That's Los Angeles COE. Or you can find us on Facebook and LinkedIn at Los Angeles County Office of Education.